UK election hung parliament projected and shock defeat for Conservatives. An exit poll projected a hung parliament following Britain's general election Thursday, in what would be a crippling political defeat for Prime Minister Theresa May's Conservative government. The exit poll, commissioned by the UK's three main broadcasters and released after the polls closed at 10 p.m., projected the Tories to hold 314 seats, down 16 from their total at the end of the last parliament. The Labour Party was forecast to gain 37 seats for a total of 266. The Scottish National Party was projected to lose 20 seats for a total of 34, and the centre-left Liberal Democrats were projected to have 14 seats, up 5 from the last parliament. It's still very early in the evening, said Northern Ireland Secretary James Brokenshire. It's too early in the night to be drawing conclusions. The forecasted result caused the British pound to plummet more than 2 cents against the dollar, falling from 1.2955 to 1.275 late Thursday. Some investors worry that the lack of a clear Conservative majority would weaken the next government's hand in the upcoming negotiations to leave the European Union. Officially, a party needs to win 326 seats to gain a majority in the 615-member House of Commons. However, the actual magic number is closer to 323. The Speaker does not vote send members from Sinn Féin, the Irish Nationalist Party, which won 4 seats in the last general election in 2015, do not appear at Westminster. Though the Conservatives would remain the largest single party, the projected result puts Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn, long thought unelectable even by members of his own party, tantalizingly close to the threshold of number 10 Downing Street. However, the Liberal Democrats have repeatedly ruled out forming a governing coalition with either the Conservatives or Labour, citing policy differences over the UK leaving the European Union. For May, the projected result could lead to the end of her tenure as Prime Minister and Conservative Party leader, and spark a bit around a finger pointing over how an election many thought unlosable was lost. Craig Oliver, a spokesman for former Prime Minister David Cameron, told Sky News that if the exit poll was accurate, there will be deep and lasting shock in party headquarters, that May's gamble to call an early election had backfired. It was the biggest gamble a politician has taken for a long time, Oliver said, and if that exit poll is right, it's failed. In late April, the Conservatives had led Labour by 21 points in an average of the major national polls, and May was considered the greatly preferred choice for Prime Minister over Corbyn, a 68-year-old socialist who has opposed British military interventions in Iraq, Afghanistan, and Libya, and has fought tougher anti-terrorism laws for decades. The stalwart of Labour's far left, Corbyn also shared platforms with Irish Republicans in the years when the IRA was setting off bombs in Britain. The 60-year-old May, who took over as Premier after Cameron's resignation following the outcome of last June's Brexit referendum, had called the election 3 years ahead of schedule. She had envisioned the vote as a referendum on her ability to negotiate Britain's departure from the European Union, but Brexit failed to emerge as a major issue in the campaign, as both the Conservatives and Labour said they would respect voters' wishes and go through with the divorce. The tenor of the campaign also changed after 2 Islamist terror attacks in a 12-day span killed 29 people and injured hundreds more. The attacks brought renewed and harsher scrutiny to May's 6-year tenure as Home Secretary's top law enforcement official. In the wake of the May 22 suicide bombing at an Ariana Grande concert in Manchester and the June 3 van attack on London Bridge, in the heart of the capital, Corbyn slammed May for overseeing massive cuts to police forces as part of larger spending reductions under the Cameron premiership. You cannot protect the public on the cheap, Corbyn said over the weekend. The police and security services must get the resources they need, not 20,000 police cuts. In a response, May insisted that her government had protected the counter-terrorism policing budget, increased the number of armed police officers after several years when it fell, and funded the intelligence services to hire 1,900 more staff. She also vowed to crack down on terrorism suspects, adding that if our human rights laws stop us from doing it, we will change the laws so we can do it. The terror attacks were not the only reason May lost ground in the polls. The Prime Minister's campaigning style was criticized as stiff and lackluster, and some Conservative policy proposed a hostile reception, including a plan to make pensioners pay for more of their care. Corbyn, meanwhile, revealed himself to be an unexpectedly savvy campaigner and unveiled several promises that proved popular with the public, including increased spending on the National Health Service, schools and police, as well as the nationalization of railroads and utilities. Rachel Sheard, who cast her vote near the site of the London Bridge attack, said the election had not gone as expected and that it certainly wasn't about Brexit. I don't think that's in the hearts and minds of Londoners at the minute, not nearly as much as security is, said Sheard, 22. While security was on many voters' minds, it was far from the only issue.
It's important, but it's only one issue, among several, said 68-year-old Mike Beecroft. I wouldn't necessarily say it's at the top. Obviously at my end of the age spectrum I'm more interested in things like pensions and so forth. NHS healthcare plus schooling, those are really my main concerns. In her final message to voters, May tried to put the focus back on Brexit. I can only build that better country and get the right deal in Brussels, with the support of the British people, she said. So whoever you have voted for in the past, if that is the future you want, then vote Conservative today, and we can all go forward together. Corbyn told supporters at his final rally that Labour's campaign had changed the debate and given people hope. Hope that it doesn't have to be like this, that inequality can be tackled, that austerity can be ended, that you can stand up to the elites and the cynics.
It Comes at Night. Like a Bruegel painting, this post-apocalyptic horror film portrays a bleak vision with a master's touch. As It Comes at Night begins, the disaster has already happened. The spare but savage horror movie, the second feature film from writer-director Trey Edward Shults, whose debut, the vertiginous addiction drama Krisha, made my 10 best list last year, takes place in the wake of some never-named catastrophe. Was the plague that seems to have killed off most of the Earth's inhabitants triggered by war or environmental collapse? Did the world as we know it end with a bang or a whimper? With a reserve that's rare in the era of elaborate world-building, Shults never reveals the exact nature of this particular apocalypse. All that seems to be left, as the film opens, is one family, boarded up in what was once a lovely house in the woods. They venture outside only to chop firewood and fetch water, wearing gas masks to protect against the mysterious illness. The hyper-vigilant patriarch, Paul Joel Edgerton, runs the house like a military camp. As a devoted husband and father, but having to battle the constant looming specter of death hasn't done wonders for his parental warmth. His wife, Sarah Carmen Ihoko, loses her own beloved father to the plague in the first scene, and Paul's swift and unsentimental disposal of the buddy makes it clear he isn't playing around when it comes to his family's safety. Their 17-year-old son, Travis the remarkable Calvin Harrison Jr., through whose expressive eyes much of the story unfolds, is as normal a teenager as a kid in a post-apocalyptic hellscape can be. He misses his grandfather, confides his secrets to his grandfather's old dog, and dreams about, among other things, pretty girls, though Travis' frequent dreams, filmed in rich chiaroscuro by cinematographer Drew Daniels, have a way of ending in stark images of body horror. One night the family's home is broken into by a stranger named Will Christopher Abbott, who, under rough questioning from Paul, claims he's seeking water for his wife and small son living 50 miles away. Sarah convinces Paul that it makes sense to invite this family to take shelter with their own, not least because the newcomers have livestock and chickens to offer. Soon Will, his wife, Kim Riley Keough, and their little boy, Andrew Griffin and Robert Faulkner, are adjusting to the rigid daily routine prescribed by Paul, who warmly welcomes them while making clear that any breach of trust could be deadly. As relations between the two families grow more and more tense, the viewer, along with Travis, starts to question just what the point is of all this survivalist grit. What sort of life? Shults asks, not directly through dialogue, but with the nimble movement of his camera, and the merciless unfolding of his plot would constitute one worth surviving for. Edgerton's Paul embodies a type that at first seems familiar from countless action movies, a tough but loving dad willing to do anything to protect his family. But what happens when that family's interests and needs come into direct, zero-sum conflict with those of another, equally deserving family? Human civilization is, at its core, an attempt to defer that brutal question into an indefinite future, to maintain at least the sustaining myth that we're all in this together. The slowly building showdown between Paul and Will, two headstrong men determined to keep their loved ones safe at all costs, is a refutation of that myth and a recognition that the future we dreaded may already be upon us. Shults conceived of It Comes at Night after the death of his father, an alcoholic on whom the female protagonist of Krisha is partly based. Even if you weren't aware of that autobiographical fact going in, it would soon become clear this is a movie obsessed with death, and fathers the existential inevitability of one, the psychic inescapability of the other. Though its themes are so dark they seem to call for the invention of a new color, It Comes at Night does offer a few glimpses of levity and affection amid the unremitting bleakness, especially when Travis eavesdrops on the newly arrived couple who, in contrast to his grim-faced, rifle-gripping parents, seem like the embodiment of young love.
Toward the end, It Comes at Night's horror elements, the obscure rumbles and mutterings in the hallway. The nightmares that seem at first to be really happening start to give way to action thriller questions. Who is and isn't telling the truth? Who will outsmart whom? Where's the key to the gun cabinet?